We are going to get straight into it. Our weekly show with Hume and McAllister. Each week, Shadow Finance Minister Jane Hume and Assistant Climate Change and Energy Minister Jenny McAllister face off and fire up on the big news and political developments of the week. Jane and Jenny, welcome. Good to see you both. Thank you so much. Normally we do start off with a minute each, but as you can see, we're running a little bit late today. So let's go straight into our first topic, inflation. Some 3.3 million Australian mortgage holders have been stung with another interest rate rise this week. The Reserve Bank has lifted rates for the 7th consecutive month, with the cash rate jumping another 0.25% to rise to 2.85 on Tuesday. It's all in a bid to curb rising inflation. RBA Governor Philip Lowe seems confident that it will begin decreasing soon, but hasn't ruled out further hikes, and pressure on the government to offer cost of living relief is ramping up.
This is another difficult day for Australians who are already under the pump.
Over the year to September, the inflation rate in Australia was 7.3%. We're expecting it to go higher over the rest of this year and reach around 8% later in the year.
What we didn't see from the government last week in the budget is a clear and comprehensive plan that can take pressure off inflation and can take pressure off interest rates.
Inflation limits our aspirations. It erodes the purchasing power of take-home pay.
The millions of Australians that are doing it tough at the moment and are likely to be in a worse situation in 6 months' time when interest rates, cost of living really bite.
Jenny, as we know, cost of living is through the roof. The public wants answers. They want assistance. We know mortgage repayments are going up, bills are through the roof. How will the government help people in the short term, or is it a matter of, well, you just have to bear the brunt of it?
You're right that Australian households are under quite a bit of pressure. You mentioned just earlier the increases to mortgages. There's also, of course, increases to a number of, of the cost just when you do the groceries or fill up your car at the petrol station. We took all the steps that we could in the budget to support that. And I guess the approach we took was this. We don't want to make the Reserve Bank's job any harder. And so the relief that we provided in the budget was designed to alleviate cost of living, but also to yield an economic dividend that will help with those long-term issues in the economy. So things like reducing the cost of childcare, really important for family budgets, but also an economic dividend, getting the equivalent of an additional 37,000 workers into the workforce. These things take pressure off inflation, but also actually help at a household budget level. And we were looking for responsible measures that would help households, but also help the economy.
OK, but in terms of immediate relief, though, why not cash handouts? Why is that not on the table?
I think the Treasurer has been very clear that a key imperative is not to make the Reserve Bank's job any harder, to allow us to get inflation under control. Pumping large amounts of cash into the economy does produce a risk of increases in inflation. And so we've been really clear about how we ought to target our assistance. It's things like reducing the cost of medicines, reducing the cost of childcare, and easing some of the constraints in the skills by providing fee-free TAFE and other opportunities for training. In the medium term, we are looking to strengthen the economy by dealing with some of the productivity issues that were ignored by the last government.
All right, Jane, what exactly should the government be doing here?
I think that Australians are rightly frustrated. This budget was such a missed opportunity. It provided no economic plan and it provided no relief to the cost of living issues that have been faced right now. You know, prior to the election, Anthony Albanese came out and said that people would feel the benefit of a Labor government in their hip pockets, in their bank accounts. Well, I think that they certainly are right now. And last Tuesday's rate rise is just symptomatic of that. Philip Lowe has said that the only way that you can take the pressure off the RBA, that you can, get your fiscal policies to do some of the heavy lifting, so that the RBA doesn't have to keep up with those interest rate rises and do all the work itself. There's only 3 ways you can do it. One is to raise taxes. We think that is the worst idea in a cost of living crisis, is to actually take more money out of other people's pockets. The other way is to reduce your spending, and the third way is to grow the economy. Well, reducing your spending and growing the economy are really the only 2 ways out of here, and yet the budget really didn't do anything to help with those two objectives. In fact, Labor went to the election with $18 billion more of spending than the coalition, and in fact it turned out to be $23 billion more. That's certainly not what we'd do. The most important thing, I think, for businesses, though, is to make sure you get those energy prices under control, both households and businesses, whether it be electricity or whether it be gas. And I know we're going to talk about that later. And finally, remove the constraints from the economy so that it can grow and flourish and thrive without those artificial sort of supply side constraints. An industrial relations reform that would encourage strike action that is a cost to business, that's burdensome for small businesses, is exactly the wrong way to go. So yes, we would do things very differently to help people with the cost of living right now.
Okay, would you support handouts?
I suppose.
Sorry, what was the question?
Would you support handouts?
No, we'd simply spend less. And this is what's so frustrating, I think, is that the government have said, oh, look, the cost of everything's going up. Oh, isn't that terrible? What are we going to do about it? Oh, well. But they haven't actually provided a plan to deal with it. They haven't realised that the first responsibility of government is to control your expenditure, to control those payments, not just simply raise the white flag and say, it's all too hard. We must have to raise taxes in the future to deal with this. That's not your job. Your job is to control the expenditure along the way so that the RBA doesn't have to do all the heavy lifting.
Okay, so Jenny, how would you control spending?
It's really quite incredible to hear Jane talking about controlling spending. Under their administration, the last Liberal government saw expenditure grow and grow and grow at every budget. This budget, we returned 99 cents in every dollar of additional revenue that was identified to the budget over the first 2 years of the budget. We actually managed
Jenny, you've got debt and deficits out until to the horizon. You can't see any improvement.
I am intrigued, Jane, that you choose to raise debt and deficit. $1 trillion of debt racked up under you guys, and of course one of the fastest growing elements of expenditure in the budget is servicing the interest on your debt. We have taken the responsible
Now, let's
step
put
in
aside the
putting
fact
together
that we
a budget.
had 2 years of
Katie
pandemic
Gallagher
after a
and
balanced
Jim
budget. There is no
Chalmers.
balanced budget
Katie
in your
Gallagher,
horizon. Not one. Not
May
one.
I finish, or are you going to talk over me? Katie Gallagher and Jim Chalmers went through the budget line by line, identifying $22 billion of savings and redirections to make room for our priorities. And those priorities were to strengthen the economy,
all right.
to grow the skill base, to grow the labour force, and to ease pressure on households.
We're running out of time, but Jane, I'll give you the last word on this one. Realistically, though, if the coalition was still in power, what would you be saying to the RBA right now?
Well, that's exactly what we'd be saying, that we'd be spending not just $18 billion less, but $23 billion less so that the RBA doesn't have to do the heavy lifting. And we certainly wouldn't be shrouding a whole bunch of cost of living relief measures, things like the paid parental leave, the cost of medicine. These are things that are often the never. They're 2 years away for childcare relief. It's 1 year away for medicine relief. And I'm still scratching my head. Maybe you can explain to me, Jenny, how paid parental leave could possibly be called a cost of living relief measure, because it just isn't. It's a
I have to wrap it up. I have to wrap it up because I do want to get to our gas chat. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. All the excitement continuing. The government also seeking solutions to another